All right, so now we have our shading in there, and what I'll show you next is how to make a 3D effect with the type. And this is just one of the things I like to do sometimes. So let's keep what we have here because that looks nice. And I'll drag a copy of the artboard over. Change it to like a gray, and I'll get rid of this black background. So what we want to do is make a copy, Command C, Command B to paste in back, and I'll just turn that into a black stroke and thicken it up a little bit. The next thing I'll do is I'll copy the stroke, and then paste another copy in back. Let's see here, let me lock that gray. And I select the one in the back. And so now you've got a mess of strokes behind the gray part, which is okay. I'll take my blend tool and click on one of the black strokes and then click on the other group of black strokes. And you'll see what it does is it makes an automatic 3D effect. Now the nice thing about doing it this way, there's some drawbacks and then there's some advantages. The drawbacks are that if you zoom in really close to the edges, you'll notice kind of a serrated edge. And the reason for that is the blend tool is just making a bunch of in-between shapes between our two sets of strokes. So right now I have it set to 50 specified steps. So there's actually 50 little copies in between here. So I'll change that to 3, and you'll see 1, 2, 3, that there's 3 copies in between. So the more copies that you make, the smoother it'll look. But I don't ever create final files out of this because no matter what, as close as you zoom in, there's still going to be that serrated edge, even if it's micro. Or the only time I would do that is if I were bringing my vector file into Photoshop and maybe putting a little distress on it, so you're just going to lose that edge. In Illustrator, for final files, especially if you're delivering them to a client, you want really perfect files, as perfect as you can get without any weird little extra points going on. So enough about that. Let's change this back to 50. And that's good enough for us to see this shadow. And I might actually go with that as is. But the nice thing about this is it allows you to visualize your shadow in different perspectives. So in other words, let me isolate that and just select the bottom piece. And I can slide this over and it'll update. So it's really good for visualizing how your 3D is going to look. Now, I don't like this because there's too much white space between the letters. It's sort of distracting. So I'll just undo that and go back to what we had. Now, like I said, this isn't for production, so it's great for visualization. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a copy of that, and then I'm going to take the one that's existing and I'm going to turn down the opacity. Let me go to my transparency menu here. So I'm just going to turn the opacity down. Let's say 40%. Now let me select that and then paste in front that copy that I had made, the nice black one. So what I want to do is get rid of that blend shape. So what I'll do is I'll just select the bottom one, Command X to cut it, and then I'll select the other black stroke, the one in front, and then just paste that copy behind it. So we're kind of back where we started. And let me lock this distress just so it doesn't get in the way. So now I'll select those black strokes and go Object, Expand. So that leaves us with fills. And what we want to do, because this is so confusing, we're using that transparent blend shape in the back. We're using that as a guide. So you'll see what we're doing here in a second. Let me select both of those and hit merge. And the merge filter just kind of collapses all the points and kind of glues everything together. And so what we want to do here is match our black 3D part to our gray blend shape. So I'll go ahead and with the white arrow tool, I'll just start deleting these little in-between shapes. So what we'll have to do is manually draw in a few, like these open ones. All the closed ones we can delete. And I'll just try to do this as quick as possible. So we want to keep the white areas white. We just want to fill in whatever's gray in here. So I'll finish all this off in fast motion. And then get back to you here in a second. Okay, so now I've got all the enclosed black shapes deleted. You'll just see ones on the edge that are gray. And what I'll do here, just so you can see it a little better, I'll change the main type to a blue. Okay, now let me go back, lock the blue type, lock the shading, and I'll lock the transparent blend shape we had in the back. And again, that's just for a guide. So the last thing we need to do here is to basically bridge these little gaps. And we're going to do that manually. And we do that by drawing a path from one to the other. Let me turn that stroke down a little bit. And I'll just make a copy of that and use the pen tool to just close it back up. So now you just turn that into a fill. And you have this little thing, it's called, I call it a bridge piece, but it's basically just a little rectangle that's at that correct angle that all that 3D is going. I'll change these to orange so you can just see what's going on. So I'll zoom out, and you'll notice all these areas that we have to span are at the exact same angle and distance. And you just want to snap those right into place. I would be pretty precise about it because, I mean, that's why we're doing this, to get the paths really nice. And you'll see how this one hangs over, so I'll just get my white open arrow tool and just drag up one side of it. I'm not really worried about, again, I'll just move part of that. Oh, forgot to drag a copy. So you hold down your Option key to make a copy while you drag. Sometimes I forget to do that. So I'll go ahead and speed this up and you can see how I've done this, but I'm using the same process. And again, we're using that gray blend shape in the back as our guide so we know what we need to close up. All right, looks like we got all of them. I'll leave that artboard like that so you can have this file and go in and look at it. So let me go ahead and save that. And then drag a copy of that over, of that artboard. And again, I'll select the blue type, lock it, select the distress, the shading, lock it. I'll select the transparent blend shape in the back, lock that. And so now I've just got the black 3D shading, and then I've got these little orange bridge pieces. So what I need to do now is change those back to black. Let me lock this little secondary type here too. And it might look weird here for a second, but again, I'm going to use the merge tool, which is that one right here. Okay, so when I merged that, it brought everything to the front above the type. Let's just move it back. Now you'll notice all those little areas are encapsulated. So we can go in with our white arrow tool and just start deleting them. And it's starting to look pretty good. So you'll notice we have one area that I did not delete. And the reason is, I think those points don't actually touch. So let me just drag that over. I will hit merge again, and now we can delete that little piece. So looking pretty fine there. Other thing I want to do is double click on this black shape. Just select the black. Just hit select same fill color just in case. And then select inverse. And there's all these little interior parts that are separate strokes. That's just what happens with the merge tool. So to delete. And now when we select that black, it shows up as a black fill, and we can go in and easily change the color.